Hello, hello. Hello, hello, and good night. Good night, everybody. We are live once again for our mid year reset. It feels like a series has started, even though that may not have been what we planned, right? But yeah, we're in it. So let's just keep on rolling. Okay. So the last couple of nights, we've been talking about setting yourself up for success without the stress for the second half of the year, right? It's June, and we're going to make sure that we are readying up ourselves to close out the year with, a lot more um, high energy and just feeling connected to yourself and reconnecting to what exactly it is that you're going after. So tonight I wanted to touch on releasing, right? So before we get into this space of, well, let's talk about intention setting and looking at, how we can create those outcomes. I thought it would be best if we started to talk about the things we need to let go. Now, tonight is not about the people, places, and circumstances that you want to let go of. I will get to that because I do feel you need to address it. And when you get to the middle of a year, right? Because remember, you come in January, everything is high flying and you're feeling good. And then by the time you get to June, you have a pretty good sense of whether or not you are any closer to the desires that you set out for. Forget any closer, whether or not it even makes sense to keep going in that direction. You also have had some practice. You've had an opportunity to determine whether or not the thing that you thought you wanted is really good for you. You haven't had an opportunity to think about the things and the things that you interact with, or people that you interact with, places that you go, the habits that you currently have are actually serving you, right? Because how many of us know that when we start off the year and people start to set up their not just intention, but you have still resolution setting and goal setting and all of that, right? You know that at the beginning of the year, when you're going through that process, is a different kind of energy than by the time you get to summer, right? In many instances, you are feeling into, am I on the right path? Sometimes some things, as I've been saying in the last couple of nights, sometimes some things have gone sideways fully. And you're either busy rescuing it, trying to hold on, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, this is where I had set my head. If I don't hold on to it, then things are gonna keep going sideways. Sometimes you're so attached to that, right? That you may lose sight of the original intention. You may lose sight of the reason why you even decided in the first place that you were going down this path. You may miss the indicators that are saying to you, yo, it may be time for you to actually pivot completely, or it may be time for you to reassess why you decided you want this thing in the first place. I started off by sharing that the beginning of the year was really my first 100% in full time running a company mode, and how much the 6 months has had me examine the things about myself that I really need to let go of. Because, truth be told, guys, there are definitely some habits that your girl Stacy have that aren't necessarily serving me as a businesswoman. And aside from that, there are certain habits that maybe when you're inside a corporate and you have that kind of safety and security, like benefits, right? You got a benefits package, got insurance, or you have that steady paycheck. When you're out here on this high flying kind of space, you're not necessarily, you don't necessarily have access to those same things that you did in your previous state. And so setting up yourself for success also includes looking back at some of the things you maybe used to rest on your laurels about, some of the things you used to take for granted that aren't going to serve you in this current dispensation, right? So I think one of the things that kind of woke me up in my half year, mid year review, was looking at some of the limiting beliefs, or any kind of limiting mindset that I have about, um, how I'm approaching my life. And I'll say that what I discovered is that the first step to letting go of things that aren't serving you is to become aware of them. And it's not an easy thing to do, especially when you feel like you kind of have certain things unlocked. It's difficult to take a hard look at yourself and really say, boys, this isn't working. This way of being isn't working. Let's say it's about relationships, because a lot of people came into 2023 thinking, yeah, man, this is the year for love. Some may have come in, this is the year for money. Some may have come in, this is the year for the big job, or whatever it is that your thing is. But when you're coming into this space, let's say it's for love, right? And when you are single and ready to mingle and have certain habits and beliefs in that space, the way that you behave as a single individual doesn't easily transport over into, okay, now I have a relationship. And so sometimes when you get to know, let's say you actually did meet somebody in the last 6 months and you're settling into that quite nicely, and you're starting to now move out of that romantic stage, and your old habits are starting to set in, and it's not serving your relationship. Instead of looking outward and seeing all the things that are wrong about the person that you are potentially looking to create a life with, and this can also apply if you're already in a relationship and you decide that this is there, you're going to make it work, right? Instead of just looking outward and saying, boy, he's really not giving me all the things that I need, or I'm not really getting everything I'm supposed to get, or I don't really like this about the person. Or instead of doing that, why not examine, how am I still showing up today that actually doesn't help me in creating the relationship that I want? Right? What is it that I am actually fostering, whether it's in my mind? Look at how many thoughts you have about the person that are actually, um, contrary to what you really want to be thinking about the person, right? Look at how much you're picking apart the person, how much you're looking for things to be wrong with them. And then start to reflect within yourself now, and ascertain, well, okay, I'm doing all of this, reflecting on what's happening with them, but is it really because I'm afraid that these things exist within me and I'm not facing them? Right? Don't be afraid to actually take that next step and take that actual look at who you are being in relation to whatever the dream is that you're trying to manifest. And I find that when it comes to relationships in particular, when you're, regardless of the relationship, but in love relationships in particular, it is very easy to look across the table and see all the things that the person is not, right? It's very easy to find that thing that was cute when you were just dating, but no, when you're actually thinking about stepping fully into maybe the next phase of the relationship, you're like starting to wonder, boy, and think about, are there patterns that I'm observing about the way that I enter relationships, or about the up and downs of a relationship that you're already in? What are the things that you are repeating? What are the things that you're getting a payoff from? Like, do you like the fact that you can go and sit down with your friends and talk about all of the things then when I write with the person that is supposed to be a love partner? Right? So start to look for the different ways that this thing that you're aspiring towards, I was just using a love relationship as an example. This thing that you're aspiring towards, look for the ways in which you are ha- putting things in place, utilizing habits, utilizing behaviors that are actually setting yourself up for sabotage. Now, clearly, if you're in an abusive situation, I'm not talking about things like that, right? I'm just talking about when everything seems great and then all of a sudden you start to pick apart the situation. Same thing applies for a job or an opportunity at work. let's say it is you decided that you are going to go after this promotion. Maybe you're heading for the C suite. Maybe you are trying to create a whole new division, whatever it is that is your big goal, right? And maybe you're working with somebody and you are now seeing, first it was seeing the possibility of this role. And then all of a sudden, no, it's like, well, I'm finding all of these things that are wrong. But you're not doing any introspection. And that's what I'm really talking about. When I say release whatever isn't serving you, I'm talking about really doing the introspective work so you can release whatever behaviors you have that are not serving you. Look at what types of habits you are employing. What types of behaviors are you taking on that are actually contrary to what it is that you want to actually create? Relationships, as I said, is one space, but it can be in work as well. For me with my business, I am learning. Like, let me tell you something. You talk about stretch. Hello. Is elastic me name from the year start because me stretching to so many different directions. I've had to really examine and do some self-inquiry about whether or not this is the path for me. Do I like this rub when I'm looking at cash flow and I'm trying to figure out how much sales I need to make so that I can pay my team at the end of the month? Like, do I enjoy that? Or is it that is me not enjoying it kind of setting myself up for failure? Like, I have to be thinking about all these different things from an introspective place, not sitting down and complaining about them, even though I catch myself in the complaining sometimes, right? Because that's easy to do, right? It's very easy to sit down and complain and to point out all the things that aren't going well. As a matter of fact, I found myself in a meeting with my wealth coach. My wealth coach was working with me on the company financials. You can call her my CFO, right? And we were working through the budget. And, it's like she was giving me very solid advice she was giving me, right? And it's like I hear in the solid advice and I know because I'm a coach. So clearly I am very aware of when I'm getting good insight and information that I can use. And it's like I just kept complaining. I literally heard myself and I was on Zoom, so I could see myself, my mouth moving. And in my head, I'm saying, okay, Stacey, you're complaining about the same thing that you know is good advice, you know is work that you need to do on yourself. But you're literally sitting there and you're complaining about all the reasons why it's not going to work, all the things that will stop you from doing it. And I could hear myself talking to me in my head, but it was like my mouth was on autopilot. And even though I'm using this example for business, I think sometimes in relationships, you can kind of have that same thing. Like you have this big dream for this year that you and your honey boo going to just like sort out all the problems, or you're going to find a honey boo. And you're in thing, and you're recognizing that, yeah, you're getting that life is happening and now real life is setting in. And you're like, okay, I need to wrap my head around how I am going to stretch and grow, what I am going to leave behind so that I can expand for what this new thing is requiring of me. It's like that you need to do the work, but it just feels nicer. It has its own payoff. It feels nicer to sit down and talk with your friend about all of the things that are wrong. And you drink a juice and yes, and this and that, and the gossip, and it just right? So, guys, all I'm saying is as you move into this reset that we're doing together, clearly, because this is now my third night, right? Um, as you move into this reset, guys, I want you to start to pay attention, right? Pay attention to those moments where you are complaining about whatever your big dream is, whatever your goal is. You're complaining about the lack of progress. You're complaining about why you can't get something done. You're complaining about somebody else's role in the matter. That's the first thing we just ask you to do. That's the first thing. All you have to do is start paying attention. Okay? Once you are paying attention, then you can start to recognize, where am I showing limiting beliefs here? Where am I, not looking at myself? Where am I not paying attention to things I could be doing? Where am I not doing that introspective work? Because maybe I'm the one that needs to do some shifting. Maybe I'm the one that needs to expand how I'm communicating. Maybe I need to take a step back. Whatever it is that comes up for you, it requires you to do that introspective work. And I'm gonna say, guys, that this is not necessarily the easiest ask, but it is one that will set you up for success for the second half of the year. So you don't get to December and look back and you can't figure out why none of the things them that you were trying to achieve, why you weren't able to land any of those things. Because you'd have done the work. Most of what it means to actually achieve things in life, I will say that it is 80% mental resilience. 80%. And you can read any guru book, anybody, whatever, any thesis that is out there, every single goal setting thing. If your head is not in the game, which begins first and foremost with that self awareness and identifying where you are holding yourself back and where you have habits and behaviors that are not serving you that you need to release, then you are setting yourself up to fail. It's like literally, that's, pretty much straightforward. Now, I don't want you to beat up yourself because you're like, oh my God, all I've been doing is spending time beating up myself about this and complaining about that and whatever, right? That's not what you're going to do. Once you're sitting down and observing and you're seeing where these patterns are coming, and the next thing that you want to do is actually give yourself some compassion and grace, right? You want to cultivate self compassion, and that will actually allow you to feel a bit more empowered. Accept the fact that this is what has been happening, and that now you can be grateful that you have more awareness, that you understand where you have fallen off your own life creation wagon, right? And whatever it is that is your spiritual practice, whether you pray or you meditate, you sit in silence, whatever it is that allows you to get back to a space of feeling like, yeah, I'm going to put forward effort again, then that's the practice that you want to do next, right? So you sit in self-awareness so that you can really recognize. And it's, when it's great to do it when you actually find yourself complaining. When you find yourself complaining, it's a great time to actually identify, how often am I doing this? What am I complaining about exactly again? Right? So you do that kind of work when you're in the midst of it. See if you can catch yourself and just examine it. Then move into a space where you're kind of showing yourself some compassion and acknowledging that this is human, right? Everybody does it. It's normal. Now, how am I going to shift myself out of that? How am I going to shift my energy so that I'm actually moving towards what I want? Or I can make the proper decision about what to throw out the door because it's not serving me, so that you can move forward in the direction that you want to take. If you need any help around the energy space, last night I actually talked about realigning your energy around the destination and also around the journey. So you can check out last night's live because that's what I talked about. And I think the recording is up on my page, right? So that's the message for tonight, guys. Release whatever isn't serving you. Release whatever parts of you are not serving you so that your second half of the year can really be a lot more around awareness and building habits that are going to make it more likely for you to achieve whatever change you're trying to create in your life. It doesn't happen just based on the doing. You can force your way through it and end up in overwhelm, stress, and burnout and have all kind of toxic relationships, etc. Or you can step into more awareness and then use that to actually propel you forward. All right. So thanks for joining again, guys, tonight. This seems like it's kind of become a regular thing. Let's see if I can make it again tomorrow. But I really enjoy having these conversations. It's helping me as much as it's helping you because I have big dreams that I'm targeting for this year. And I'm going through a reset. So thanks for coming on the journey with me. And I look forward to seeing you again on another conversation. Take care, everybody.